History is filled with cities that should not exist. For centuries, stories of Atlantis and El Dorado were dismissed as pure fantasy, the stuff of fireside tales and ancient scrolls. Yet these legendary places were not mere fiction. Patient hands and sharp minds have pulled them from the shadows of myth into the clear light of day. By the end of this journey, you will see how archaeologists have systematically proven that some of our most enduring legends are true history. We will uncover how a monster's labyrinth became a real palace, and why a city of gold was actually a ritual of a gilded king. What vanished civilization do you hope was real all along? A legend is a story that refuses to die, passed from one generation to the next, not because it is factually accurate, but because it holds a deeper truth. For as long as humans have gathered around fires, we have told tales of magnificent cities that vanished, of golden ages lost to time. These myths serve a fundamental purpose in our collective psyche. They are not random fictions. They are the vessels for our greatest hopes and our most profound fears. A story like that of Shangri-La, a hidden kingdom of perfect peace and enlightenment, gives tangible form to a universal yearning for a world without conflict or suffering. It is a spiritual compass point, guiding an entire culture toward an ideal. Other legends, like those of floods or fallen cities, often encode moral warnings or attempt to explain the unexplainable forces of nature. When a society tells a story about a city swallowed by the sea, it is grappling with the very real, terrifying power of the ocean. The myth becomes a way to process chaos and find meaning in catastrophe. This is why the eventual discovery of these places resonates so deeply within us. To find the physical stones of Troy is to do more than just confirm a historical event. It is to touch something immortal, to validate a dream that an entire civilization once held dear. We are not just unearthing forgotten walls, we are answering an echo that has traveled across centuries. This profound connection between story and stone is what gives archaeology its unique power. So how does a story transform into a site on a map? The journey from fireside tale to excavated ruin relies on a rigorous scientific toolkit, a discipline of skepticism and verification. Before a single shovel touches the earth, archaeologists engage in a meticulous process of separating plausible geographical clues from pure poetic license. They begin with the texts themselves, subjecting ancient poems and chronicles to intense critical analysis. Is the description of the river consistent with real hydrology? Do the travel times mentioned between landmarks match the actual terrain? This initial phase is like solving a centuries-old puzzle with most of the pieces missing. They then cross-reference these details with accounts from other cultures, looking for overlapping mentions of a place or event that might hint at a shared, real-world location. For instance, the initial search for Troy was guided by the geography in Homer's Iliad, but a modern investigation would not stop there. Today, technologies like LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, allow researchers to digitally strip away dense jungle canopies or see beneath desert sands from the air, revealing the ghostly outlines of ancient streets and buildings invisible from the ground. Ground-penetrating radar can then map buried foundations without breaking the soil. This methodical progression from a hypothesis based on myth to technological survey and finally to painstaking excavation ensures that every claim is pressured against hard evidence. It is this disciplined, almost forensic approach that elevates the search from a speculative treasure hunt to a historical revelation, proving that the most powerful tool in archaeology is not the trowel, but an unwavering commitment to the truth. The city of Troy was a legend carved not in stone but in verse. For generations, scholars dismissed Homer's epic tale of a 10-year war, of a wooden horse and a fallen city, as a beautiful fantasy. The idea that a single individual could prove them all wrong seemed more improbable than the myth itself. Then came Heinrich Schliemann, a man driven by an obsession that many considered madness. He was not a trained academic, but a wealthy businessman who believed the Iliad was not just poetry, but a historical guidebook. His literal interpretation of Homer's geography led him to a large mound in Hisarlik, Turkey. Convinced he had found the setting of the Trojan War, he began to dig with a fervor that was as destructive as it was determined. His methods were brutal, using teams of workers and massive trenches that sliced through centuries of history, but his conviction was unshakable. And then he found it. Beneath the layers of earth, he uncovered the burnt remains of a magnificent ancient city, its walls scarred by fire and warfare. This was a place that had died in a cataclysm, its destruction aligning perfectly with the legendary siege. Schliemann went further, unearthing a glittering hoard of gold jewelry and artifacts he dramatically named Priam's treasure. While modern archaeology has since shown that this treasure belonged to a city far older than the likely era of the Homeric War, and that his excavation techniques destroyed as much as they revealed, the core of his achievement stands firm. He had proven that a story sung for millennia was rooted in a real, physical place. Troy was no longer a metaphor for tragic love and futile war. It was a city that had lived, breathed, and fallen. This single discovery shattered the boundary between epic poetry and earthly evidence, forcing the academic world to look at ancient myths with new, more humble eyes. It was a messy, controversial, and ultimately triumphant beginning to the search for other legendary places lost to time. The story of a monster in a maze found its home on the sun-drenched island of Crete. Here, the legend of the Minotaur spoke of a terrifying creature, half man and half bull, imprisoned within an inescapable labyrinth built by King Minos. For centuries, this was a dark fairy tale, a warning from the ancient Greeks about the dangers of arrogance and the monstrous things that can hide in the heart of a kingdom. Then, at the dawn of the 20th century, a man named Sir Arthur Evans began to dig into a large mound known as Knossos. What he unearthed would forever change our understanding of where myths come from. Evans uncovered the sprawling, multi-level ruins of an immense palace. Its layout was bewildering, a chaotic network of corridors that twisted and turned, leading to dead ends and sudden, unexpected rooms. To Evans, this was not merely a royal residence, it was the physical labyrinth itself. The sheer scale and complexity of the palace would have seemed supernatural to later Greeks, who only saw the crumbling stones of a civilization they could no longer comprehend. But the evidence for the myth did not stop at the architecture. Evans and his team found vibrant frescoes adorning the walls, and these paintings told a startling story. They depicted young men and women engaged in a breathtaking, dangerous ritual, bull leaping. In these images, athletes literally vaulted over the backs of charging bulls, a display of incredible agility and courage that walked the line between sport, ceremony, and mortal peril. This was not a tale of a flesh-eating monster, but it provided the perfect cultural seed. The power and centrality of the bull in this society, combined with the confusing, maze-like palace of its king, could have easily transformed over generations into the story of the Minotaur. The discovery was about far more than validating a single myth. Evans had uncovered an entire civilization, the Minoans, a sophisticated Bronze Age society that had been completely erased from history. Their advanced art, architecture, and trade networks revealed a people who were the equals of ancient Egypt. the legend of the Minotaur was not a random invention. It was a fragmented memory of this very real, very powerful culture, distorted by time and retelling. Finding Knossos proved that a monster's tale can be a cryptic history book waiting for its code to be cracked. Deep within the desert canyons of Jordan, a secret was kept for over 1,000 years. Western scholars knew of a legendary city carved from rose-red stone, mentioned in ancient texts and guarded by the whispered stories of Bedouin tribes. Yet its precise location was a mystery, lost to the outside world. The man who would change this was not a typical adventurer, but a Swiss scholar named Johann Ludwig Burckhardt. He had studied the old accounts and believed the city was real. To find it, he knew he had to gain the trust of the local people, so he disguised himself as an Arab traveler, learning the language and customs. In 1812, under the guise of making a sacrifice at a nearby tomb, his guides led him through a narrow, winding fissure in the rock known as the Sick. For nearly a mile, he walked through this shadowy corridor, the high cliffs blocking out the sun. Then, as he emerged, the sight that greeted him was almost beyond comprehension. There, glowing in the desert light, was the breathtaking facade of Al-Kosneh, the treasury, a massive temple intricately carved directly into the face of a pink sandstone cliff. Burckhardt had found Petra. The legends had not done it justice. Subsequent archaeological work has revealed this was not just a single tomb, but the magnificent capital of the Nabatean Empire, a civilization that mastered the unforgiving desert. They were brilliant engineers, creating a complex network of channels and cisterns that captured scarce rainwater, allowing a bustling metropolis of tens of thousands to flourish in the arid landscape. Petra was a hub of global trade where incense, silk, and spices flowed through its gorges, making its merchants immensely wealthy. This wealth was then immortalized in the rock, with countless tombs, temples, and tombs carved into the multicolored stone, a city literally sculpted from the earth itself. The discovery proved that the tales of a majestic desert city were not exaggerations, but faded memories of a very real and utterly ingenious human achievement. From this wonder of stone and water, our search moves from the open desert to the deep, suffocating jungle, where an even older legend was waiting to be found. Another legend was hiding in plain sight, clinging to the mist-shrouded peaks of the Andes. While the Spanish conquest of the Inca Empire was brutal and total, one city was said to have escaped their notice entirely, a ghost of stone that vanished back into the jungle after the empire fell. For centuries, this place was little more than a whisper among the local Quechua people, a story the outside world dismissed as another folktale. Then, in 1911, an American historian named Hiram Bingham, led by local guides through the treacherous mountains, pushed aside a curtain of vines and was met with a sight that defied belief. He had not found a small village, but a breathtaking citadel of perfectly fitted granite walls, elegant terraces, and ceremonial structures, all perched impossibly between two soaring peaks. This was Machu Picchu. Its preservation was miraculous, a pristine time capsule of Inca genius. Because the Spanish never found it, there were no colonial churches built atop its temples, no systematic dismantling of its structures. The city remained exactly as its inhabitants had left it, offering a pure, untainted view into one of the ancient world's most sophisticated civilizations. The stonework itself was a marvel of engineering, each block cut with such precision that not even a knife blade could slip between them, allowing the buildings to withstand centuries of earthquakes. Its very layout was a map of the cosmos, with temples and structures aligned with the solstices and other celestial events. Was this a royal retreat for an emperor, a sacred sanctuary for priestesses, or a final bastion for a dying culture? The mystery is part of its power. Machu Picchu stands as a profound testament to the endurance of indigenous knowledge, a place that was never truly lost, only waiting for the wider world to listen. It proves that a legend does not need to be forgotten, only guarded by those who remember. From these cloud-piercing heights, our journey now takes us down from the mountains to a very different kind of legend buried beneath the flat, arid plains of North America. While Egypt's pharaohs built their monuments along the Nile, a rival power was rising to the south. The Kingdom of Kush was a civilization of immense wealth and military might, a truth long buried not by sand, but by the biased accounts of its neighbors. For centuries, our primary window into Kush came from Egyptian records, which often depicted it as a conquered territory or a troublesome rival. These one-sided histories could not capture the full picture of a kingdom that was, in fact, a peer and sometimes a master to Egypt itself. The archaeological rediscovery of Kushite cities like Meroe and the holy mountain of Jebel Barkal in modern Sudan has completely rewritten this narrative. Here, explorers found not simple outposts, but a landscape dotted with their own distinct pyramids, more numerous than those in all of Egypt. They uncovered the remains of massive temples and evidence of a technological revolution, as Kush became a powerhouse of iron production, its furnaces lighting up the night sky. The most startling revelation, however, came from connecting these material finds to the historical timeline. We now know that around 747 BC, Kushite kings marched north, conquered Egypt, and ruled as its 25th dynasty, the famed Black Pharaohs. This was not a mythical event, but a documented historical period where the so-called periphery became the center of power. The legendary wealth of Kush, built on vast gold mines that the Egyptians craved, provides a fascinating real-world parallel to tales like El Dorado. It shows us how the shimmering reputation of a truly golden kingdom can travel across continents and centuries, morphing into a universal legend of a city of gold. This correction of the historical record is a powerful reminder that the victors do not always get to write the final story, especially when the stones themselves can speak. A powerful legend can also be a deliberate lie. In the highlands of southeastern Africa, the sprawling stone ruins of Great Zimbabwe stood for centuries as a silent monument to a magnificent past, yet its true story was systematically stolen. European colonists who encountered the massive, curved walls and conical towers could not, or would not, accept that indigenous Africans had engineered such a masterpiece. They spun their own myths, claiming it must have been the palace of the biblical Queen of Sheba or a remote fortress built by Phoenicians or Arabs. These were not innocent theories. They were acts of intellectual erasure, designed to deny a civilization its own history and justify colonial rule by painting Africa as a continent without a past worthy of respect. But stones do not lie. When systematic archaeology finally began, it meticulously dismantled these racist fantasies. The evidence was overwhelming and unequivocal. This was the heart of the Kingdom of Zimbabwe, a powerful state that flourished between the 11th and 15th centuries. Its architecture was a stunning achievement of dry stone walling, where master craftsmen fitted granite blocks together with such precision that no mortar was needed, creating walls that have endured for nearly 1,000 years. And the artifacts found within told a story of global connection. Fragments of Chinese celadon pottery and coins from the Arab world were not left by foreign visitors, but were the everyday imports of a wealthy, cosmopolitan capital. Great Zimbabwe was the hub of a vast international network, controlling the trade of gold from the interior mines to ports on the Swahili coast, from where it traveled across the Indian Ocean. This discovery was far more than an academic correction. It was a profound act of decolonization. It restored a legacy of power, sophistication, and commerce to the Shona people, proving that their ancestors were not primitive tribesmen, but the builders of an empire whose wealth echoed across the medieval world. Great Zimbabwe stands as a permanent lesson that archaeology holds the power not just to uncover history, but to reclaim identity from the grip of oppressive legend. The quest for lost cities is often a search for truth against the tide of forgotten stories. Even the grandest empires can be erased from memory. For centuries, the Hittites were exactly that, a phantom presence on the edges of history. They were mentioned in the Bible as a powerful kingdom and appeared in Egyptian scrolls as a formidable rival, yet no physical trace of their civilization remained. To many scholars, they were beginning to seem like another myth, a paper empire that had never truly existed in stone and mortar. This profound mystery began to unravel in the early 20th century at a remote site in Turkey known as Hattusa. There, archaeologists uncovered the empire's colossal capital. They found immense, sloping defensive walls that stretched for miles and the ruins of monumental gateways guarded by stone lions and sphinxes. But the true key to resurrection lay not in the architecture, but in the dirt. Diggers discovered a royal archive, a chamber filled with thousands of clay tablets, meticulously inscribed with the intricate wedge-shaped script known as cuneiform. When these tablets were finally deciphered, they did not just list kings and battles, they revealed the inner workings of a sophisticated superpower. One of the most astounding finds was a copy of a peace treaty signed between the Hittite king and the Egyptian pharaoh Ramesses II, ending the epic conflict at the Battle of Kadesh. This was not a story of a mythical confrontation, but a documented diplomatic agreement between two equal empires, a Bronze Age superpower treaty. The discovery resurrected a complete society with its own complex legal codes, a pantheon of gods, and a sprawling bureaucracy that managed an empire stretching across Anatolia and into the Levant. The Hittites were suddenly real, a third pillar of the ancient world standing beside Egypt and Babylon. Their re-emergence from total oblivion is a humbling lesson in the fragility of memory and the patient power of the trowel. It forces us to ask, if an empire of such scale could vanish so completely, what other forgotten giants are still lying silent, waiting for their story to be told once more? Sometimes the earth itself forgets. For centuries, the Egyptian city of Thonis-Heracleion was a ghost in the historical record, a place mentioned by the Greek historian Herodotus as a wealthy port where all trade with Greece had to pass. He wrote of a magnificent temple and a bustling harbor, but as the centuries turned, the city vanished from all maps. It became a legend, a cautionary tale of a place swallowed by the sea. Many believed it was just another myth, a story conflated with other lost cities. The Mediterranean had simply absorbed it without a trace. Then, in the late 1990s, underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudio and his team decided to look where no one had systematically searched before, beneath the waves of Aboukir Bay. Using sophisticated side-scan sonar and magnetic survey equipment, they began to map the seafloor, searching for anomalies in the mud and sand. What they found would stun the world. Emerging from the shadows of the deep were the colossal stone forms of a pharaoh and a queen, standing over 16 feet tall. They had discovered not just a few scattered ruins, but an entire city preserved in a time capsule of clay and seawater. The team meticulously excavated a landscape of dreams, bringing to light the ruins of the Grand Temple of Ammon, sunken ships that had rested on the harbor bottom for over 2,000 years, and countless artifacts from daily life, including gold coins and delicate jewelry. The sheer volume and pristine quality of the finds painted a vivid portrait of a vibrant, cosmopolitan hub, a crucial gateway between Egypt and the Mediterranean world. The city's dramatic disappearance was likely caused by a phenomenon known as soil liquefaction, where a powerful earthquake causes stable ground to suddenly behave like a liquid. The clay-based soil beneath the city simply gave way, and the entire metropolis, with all its temples and treasures, slid into the sea. The legend was true. Thonis-Heracleion's discovery is a haunting testament to the power of the natural world and the fragile line between a bustling center of commerce and a silent, underwater museum. It proves that our planet's most profound secrets are not always hidden in distant jungles or atop remote mountains, but can lie just offshore, waiting in the deep for their story to be recovered. From this sunken world, our search for legendary places moves to a very different kind of mystery, one not buried by water, but by time and the shifting sands of a vast, empty desert. The line between divine judgment and natural disaster can be remarkably thin. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah, a cornerstone of biblical narrative, describes two cities obliterated by fire and brimstone falling from the sky, a stark lesson in morality. For generations, this was viewed as pure theology, a powerful allegory with no basis in physical reality. That perspective began to shift with excavations at a site in Jordan known as Tall el-Hammam. Archaeologists uncovered the remains of a flourishing Bronze Age city-state, but its end was anything but ordinary. A distinct layer of destruction held evidence of a sudden, unimaginable catastrophe dating to around 1650 BCE. The clues were bizarre and terrifying. They found pottery shards with surfaces that had been melted into glass and mud bricks that had been vitrified, a process where minerals fused together under extreme heat. To achieve this effect, temperatures would have needed to soar well beyond what any ordinary fire or even warfare of the era could produce. The scientific explanation pointing to a culprit from outer space, a massive airburst from a comet or meteor exploding high above the city. The thermal pulse would have been instantaneous, incinerating everything and everyone in a flash, followed by a shock wave that would have flattened the city down to its foundations. This was not a slow decline or a military conquest. It was a single, horrifying event that vaporized a civilization in moments. For the few survivors in the surrounding region, such an inexplicable disaster could only be understood in one way, as an act of divine wrath. The memory of a city turned to glass and ash would have been seared into collective memory, passed down for centuries until it was codified into the scripture we know today. This discovery does not prove the moral dimensions of the biblical story, but it provides a stunning geological and archaeological foundation for it. It demonstrates how a single, traumatic, real-world cataclysm can become the seed for a legendary tale of punishment from the heavens, a story told to make sense of the senseless. High in the thin air of the Himalayas, the human yearning for paradise found a home. The fictional Shangri-La, a valley of perfect peace described in the 1933 novel Lost Horizon, felt so real because it echoed ancient Tibetan beliefs in Baal, hidden lands of spiritual refuge. While no single valley matches the fictional description, the archaeological rediscovery of the Guj Kingdom in western Tibet reveals the kind of place that could have inspired such a powerful dream. For centuries, Guj was little more than a whisper, a kingdom that had simply vanished from the world. Then, explorers began to document the ruins at Tsaparang, a city built not on a plain, but carved directly into the face of a colossal clay cliff. This was not a simple village. It was a vast, multi-level complex of palaces, monasteries, and meditation caves, all sculpted from the mountain itself. At its peak, the kingdom was a beacon of Buddhist scholarship and art, a civilization that flourished in stunning isolation. Its temples were adorned with vibrant murals depicting serene deities and complex spiritual diagrams, a testament to a deep and refined culture. Yet by the 17th century, this thriving center was completely abandoned, its people gone, its memory fading into the realm of legend. The silence that fell over its empty halls and crumbling chapels was so complete that it transformed a real, powerful kingdom into a story, a potential blueprint for the mythical Shangri-La. Finding Guge did more than just add another pin to the historical map. It demonstrated how a civilization's deliberate retreat from the world, followed by its mysterious disappearance, can forge a perfect template for a paradise lost. It proves that our most cherished legends of hidden utopias are often just a few steps removed from real societies that chose to build their heavens on earth, however temporarily. This human desire to find a perfect, secluded world now pulls us from the Himalayan peaks to the sun-drenched heart of the classical world. The golden fever that consumed Europe was born from a single, shimmering misunderstanding. For generations, the legend of El Dorado propelled conquistadors deep into the treacherous heart of South America, luring them with visions of a city whose very streets were paved with gold. Men died by the thousands, consumed by disease and obsession, all in pursuit of a place that never existed. The brutal irony is that they were searching for a city when the truth was a man. The real El Dorado was not a place but a person, the Gilded One. At the sacred lake Guatavita, high in the Colombian Andes, the Spanish witnessed or heard accounts of a breathtaking Muisca ritual. When a new chief was to ascend to power, his body was entirely covered in adhesive gold dust, transforming him into a living sun god. He then boarded a ceremonial raft laden with treasures, gold figurines, and brilliant emeralds, and was paddled to the center of the lake. There, as drums beat and smoke from incense filled the air, he would cast these immense offerings into the dark, deep waters as a sacrifice to the gods. This was the true city of gold, a moment of profound spiritual significance, a king giving away his wealth to ensure his people's prosperity. The European mind, blinded by greed, could not comprehend a culture that revered gold for its spiritual luminosity rather than its monetary value. They took the ritual and twisted it in their telling, transforming a sacred act of giving into a fable of a kingdom of limitless taking. While no mythical city was ever unearthed, archaeology has confirmed the reality at the heart of the tale. From the soil around the lake, stunning gold artifacts have emerged, intricate works of art that showcase the Muisca's masterful metalworking skills. Their gold was not hoarded in vast chambers, but woven into their spiritual and political life. The legend of El Dorado is a perfect example of how a single, potent truth can be stretched and distorted across cultures, its original meaning lost until all that remains is the gleam of treasure and the ghost of a king who gave it all away. Fire can erase a city, but the loss of a library can erase a civilization. The legendary Library of Alexandria represents perhaps the most profound intellectual catastrophe in human history, a symbol of how quickly the light of knowledge can be extinguished. Popular tales speak of a single, devastating inferno, often blamed on Julius Caesar, that turned countless scrolls to ash in one night. The historical truth, however, is far more complex and drawn out. The library was not a standalone building, but the heart of a larger institution called the Mauseon, a university for the finest minds of the ancient world. Here, scholars were supported by the state to think, debate, and copy texts gathered from across the known world. While no grand ruins of bookshelves have been found, archaeology confirms its existence through more subtle means. Papyrus fragments bearing the library's official stamp and countless references in the works of ancient historians place this center of learning firmly in the realm of historical fact, not fantasy. Its eventual decline was likely a slow death by 1,000 cuts, a combination of accidental fires, civil unrest, and shifting political priorities that gradually starved it of support over centuries. The tragedy of Alexandria is not measured in the physicality of its lost scrolls, but in the incalculable void they left behind. How many plays by Sophocles, how many scientific treatises by Archimedes, how many volumes of history and philosophy simply vanished, leaving our understanding of the ancient world permanently incomplete. Its story is a permanent warning about the fragility of our collective memory. The library's true legacy is not its destruction, but the immortal ideal it represents, the unending human drive to gather, protect, and build upon knowledge. This same drive pushes us to uncover other lost centers of wisdom, hidden not by fire, but by the slow, patient silence of the earth. The search for a once and future king takes us to the windswept hills of Somerset. Here, rising from the English countryside, stands Cadbury Castle, an Iron Age hill fort that local stories for centuries insisted was the true site of Camelot. When archaeologists began to excavate, they did not find inscribed thrones or the names of knights. Instead, they uncovered something just as telling, the evidence of a powerful leader who rose in Britain's darkest hour. Following the collapse of Roman rule in the 5th and 6th centuries, this ancient fort was massively refortified. A new, imposing timber rampart was built atop the old earthworks, a defensive project on a scale that would have required the command of a great warlord, a man who could unite the people against invading armies. This was not the shining castle of later romance, but it was exactly the kind of stronghold a real battle leader would have commanded, a fortress for a king of a troubled age. Far to the southwest, on the rugged coast of Cornwall, another site adds a layer of historical richness. The dramatic clifftop ruins of Tintagel Castle, long linked to the tales of Arthur's conception, have yielded a treasure trove of a different sort. Excavations revealed the remains of a high-status settlement from this same chaotic period, a place of wealth and far-reaching connections. Fragments of fine wine amphorae from the Mediterranean and exquisite glassware from Spain were found amidst the local pottery, painting a picture of a court that traded with a dying Roman world. This was not a land plunged into total darkness, but a place where British chieftains still enjoyed the luxuries of a fading international network, a plausible setting for tales of a sophisticated royal court. No inscription bearing the name Arthur has ever been found at either site. The man himself remains as elusive as the mists of Avalon. Yet what archaeology provides is the solid ground from which the legend could grow. It reveals the historical reality of powerful warrior kings ruling from fortified capitals, men whose deeds in a time of cultural fusion and desperate conflict could have been remembered, embellished, and passed down for generations until they crystallized around the figure of one great hero. The quest for Arthur is not about finding a single man, but about recovering the lost world of a heroic age that so captured the human imagination that it demanded a king to embody it. From this search for a British hero, we journey to a land of even older epics. The desert holds its secrets close, but none more tantalizing than the legend of a city of pillars consumed by its own hubris. For generations, Bedouin storytellers spoke of Ubar, a place of immense wealth and corruption that so angered the heavens it was simply erased, swallowed whole by the shifting sands. Many saw it as pure myth, a desert parable about the dangers of greed. The fascination only grew when famed adventurer T.E. Lawrence of Arabia himself, christened it the Atlantis of the sands. The name captured the imagination of the world, but the city remained a ghost. Its discovery would hinge on a revolutionary new way of seeing the past. In the early 1990s, a team led by filmmaker Nicholas Clapp and archaeologist Joris Zarens decided to search for Ubar not with camels, but with satellites. By analyzing radar images from the space shuttle, they detected faint, ancient caravan tracks converging on a single, promising spot in the Armani Desert. Following these ghost roads on the ground, they were led to a site called Shisur. There, excavations uncovered the remains of a formidable octagonal fortress, its walls guarding the ruins of towers and dwellings. This was no simple oasis village. It was a major nexus of the frankincense trade, the source of the legendary wealth. Frankincense, the precious aromatic resin, was worth its weight in gold in the ancient world, and Ubar sat at the very crossroads of the routes that carried it to kingdoms across the globe. The city's sin was not necessarily moral wickedness, but perhaps a reliance on a resource that proved tragically fragile. The evidence points to a sudden, catastrophic collapse. The city was built over a massive limestone cavern that held its vital water supply. Archaeologists found that this cavern had imploded, creating a vast sinkhole that dragged entire sections of the fortress down into the earth. The legend of a city punished and swallowed by the desert was in fact a perfect geological and cultural memory of a real disaster. A thriving center of commerce vanished in a moment, its fate serving as an eternal warning about the delicate balance between human ambition and the environment that sustains it. From a city that fell into the earth, our search now pushes into a jungle that reclaimed a kingdom. Deep within the Musquisha jungle, a place known as the portal to the underworld, a story refused to be silenced. For generations, explorers and locals spoke of a white city, a place they also called the city of the monkey god, a realm of vanished people and untold riches concealed by an almost impenetrable green wilderness. Countless adventurers were lured by this promise, hacking through dense foliage for decades, only to emerge empty-handed or not at all. The legend seemed destined to remain just that, a tantalizing story of a civilization that the jungle had reclaimed for good. Then, in 2012, the search took a radical turn. Instead of sending more people into the dangerous terrain, a team led by documentary filmmaker Steve Elkins and supported by the National Geographic Society decided to look from above in an entirely new way. They employed a powerful airborne laser mapping technology known as LiDAR. Flying over the target area, the laser pulses pierced the thick rainforest canopy, digitally stripping away millions of leaves and trees to reveal the true shape of the ground below. The resulting images were staggering. Hidden in the remote valleys were the unmistakable, geometric outlines of a human settlement, a place no one had walked for centuries. The data showed a large central plaza, massive earthworks, and what appeared to be a pyramid, all laid out by a society completely lost to history. A ground expedition was immediately launched, a difficult trek into one of the most isolated places on Earth. When the archaeologists finally reached the coordinates, they found themselves in a silent, open plaza. The city was not built of gold, but of earth and stone, and it was utterly pristine. A cache of more than 50 stone sculptures lay exactly where they had been left, half buried in the soil. There were ceremonial seats, vessels carved with animal and human forms, and the figure of a shaman transformed into a spirit creature. These were not treasures looted from a tomb, but objects from a public space, abandoned in place as if the people had simply walked away. They had found a time capsule, a complete snapshot of a moment frozen for over 500 years. This was not just another lost city. It was a doorway to an entire culture that scholars never knew existed. A society with its own art, rituals, and social structure that flourished and then vanished long before European contact. The true discovery was not the objects themselves, but the method that made it possible. This high-tech hunt proves that our most powerful tool for uncovering the past is no longer just the trowel, but the laser and the satellite image, allowing us to see through barriers that once made the unknown permanently unknowable. A single flyover can now reveal what centuries of foot travel could not. LiDAR technology has fundamentally changed the rules of the archaeological game, turning the dense, impenetrable jungle from a barrier into a transparent window. The principle is as brilliant as it is simple. An aircraft flies over a target area, firing hundreds of thousands of laser pulses every second toward the ground. These tiny beams of light penetrate the smallest gaps in the foliage, hitting the solid earth below and bouncing back to a sensor. By meticulously calculating the time each pulse takes to return, a computer can construct a breathtakingly precise, three-dimensional map of the bare ground surface, digitally stripping away every single tree, vine, and bush. What remains is the ghostly imprint of human activity, a landscape of ancient design. This is how researchers in Guatemala recently made a discovery that rewrote a civilization. Surveying the Maya lowlands, they expected to find a few new temples. Instead, the LiDAR maps revealed a sprawling, interconnected metropolis. They saw the faint but clear outlines of raised causeways linking city centers, intricate networks of terraced farms designed to feed a massive population, and sophisticated water management systems. Most startling were the signs of widespread warfare, with fortifications and watchtowers suggesting a society far more militarized and complex than anyone had believed. This was not just one lost city, it was an entire lost world of urban development, proving the Maya civilization was vastly more populous and interconnected than the ruins alone had ever suggested. The same technology is now being applied to the vastness of the Amazon, where early results hint at extensive settlements that challenge the long-held notion of a pristine wilderness, and around the temples of Angkor Wat, where it is revealing a sprawling, low-density urban complex that supported the iconic stone structures. LiDAR does not just help us find a single set of ruins, it allows us to see the ancient world as its inhabitants saw it, as a living, breathing, and meticulously organized landscape. This eye in the sky is proving that our planet's greatest lost cities were never truly lost, only waiting for us to learn how to see through the veil. The same satellites that map our modern world are now revealing the faint scars of ancient ones, while LiDAR strips away the forest. A broader form of space archaeology examines the Earth itself from hundreds of miles above. High-resolution cameras, both commercial and scientific, capture images where the human eye sees only a field or a desert plain, but the trained specialist sees a secret code. These are the ghost signs of history, subtle variations in plant growth and soil color that betray what lies beneath. A buried stone wall will stunt the roots of crops growing above it, creating a thin, pale line known as a crop mark. Meanwhile, the richer soil filling an ancient ditch or moat will cause plants to grow taller and greener, tracing the outline of a structure long since vanished from the surface. This is how researchers have identified the potential locations of lost pyramids in Egypt, their massive foundations still influencing the desert ecology millennia later. In the flat expanses of Mesopotamia, satellite photos have traced the faint, meandering paths of silt that mark where mighty rivers like the Tigris and Euphrates once flowed, guiding archaeologists to the sites of cities that thrived on their banks. The entire sprawling network of the Silk Road, with its forgotten caravanserais and trading posts, is being meticulously mapped from orbit, revealing a web of human connection across continents. This macro perspective is revolutionizing the scale of discovery. In Saudi Arabia, for example, analysts pored over satellite imagery and identified thousands of previously unknown potential archaeological sites, from ancient tombs to entire settlements, transforming our understanding of the peninsula's prehistoric population. This is not about replacing the archaeologist's trowel, but about giving it a brilliant new sense of direction. The view from space provides a strategic map, allowing teams on the ground to bypass years of fruitless searching and go straight to the most promising locations. It turns the entire planet into a single, vast dig site where the clues are written not in stone but in the very color of the Earth and the health of its plants. The deep ocean is our planet's last great museum, its halls filled with secrets preserved in cold and darkness. For centuries, its most legendary treasures were completely unreachable, protected by crushing pressures and absolute blackness. That has all changed with the arrival of robotic explorers. Underwater remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, are the tireless eyes and hands of the modern marine archaeologist. Tethered to a support ship by a long cable, these machines are piloted in real time by technicians on the surface, their high-definition cameras beaming back a live feed from the abyss. They are equipped with powerful lights, sonar mappers, and remarkably delicate robotic arms capable of retrieving a fragile artifact from the seabed without causing damage. Their cousins, autonomous underwater vehicles, or a UVS, are the free-ranging scouts. Pre-programmed with a survey area, they fly solo missions, gliding through the water and using their own sensor suites to create detailed, three-dimensional maps of vast stretches of the seafloor. This robotic revolution has turned mythic shipwrecks into open books. The ongoing excavation of the Antikythera shipwreck, a Greek cargo vessel that sank over 2,000 years ago, has been transformed by this technology. ROVs have carefully sifted through the sediment at a depth that would be lethal for any diver, recovering bronze statues, glassware, and most famously, the corroded bronze gears of the Antikythera mechanism. This device is now recognized as the ancient world's most sophisticated known analog computer, a complex astronomical calculator that could predict eclipses and track the cycles of the Olympic Games. Similarly, the detailed mapping of the Titanic's debris field, scattered across the North Atlantic floor, was only possible through the systematic, patient work of these robotic platforms. They have provided a complete forensic picture of the wreck site, answering questions that had lingered for decades. This same technology is now being directed at sites that blur the line between natural wonder and human creation. Off the coast of the Japanese island of Yonaguni, a massive underwater formation known as the Yonaguni Monument has sparked intense debate. Its sharp, terraced edges and seemingly straight faces look unnaturally geometric to some researchers, who propose it could be the remains of a man-made structure, perhaps a pyramid or a plaza, submerged by rising seas at the end of the last ice age. Others argue it is a spectacular but entirely natural geological formation. The key to solving this mystery lies in a thorough robotic survey, using high-resolution sonar and cameras to examine the stone for any telltale marks of human toolwork. This is the new frontier of discovery. With over 70% of our planet covered in water, the potential is staggering. Every ancient coastline now submerged is a potential archaeological site, a lost world waiting for a robotic probe to switch on its lights and reveal what the deep has kept hidden for millennia. Yet the most sophisticated satellite cannot capture a story told for 1,000 years. For all the power of laser mapping and robotic probes, some of the most vital maps to the past are not digital but human. They are the oral traditions kept alive by the very communities who live in the shadows of these legendary places. The rediscovery of Machu Picchu is a perfect testament to this. Hiram Bingham did not simply stumble upon the lost city. He was led there by local Quechua farmers, men named Melchor Artiga and others, who knew of the old stones on the mountain they called Machu Picchu. They lived with its presence, a part of their landscape and their history, long before it became a global wonder. A similar story unfolded on the other side of the world in Shaanxi Province, China. In 1974, farmers digging a well unearthed something astonishing, the head of a terracotta warrior. But this was not pure luck. They were digging in an area already steeped in local lore about buried clay figures and a vast underground necropolis. Their shovels struck the literal head of a legend that would become one of the greatest archaeological finds of the 20th century, the terracotta army of Emperor Qin Shi Huang. Even older memories are preserved in the songlines of Indigenous Australians, where epic narratives passed down through oral tradition for tens of thousands of years have accurately guided archaeologists to ancient settlements, sacred sites, and even landscapes submerged by rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age. These are not just campfire tales, they are living archives, meticulously maintained databases of history, geography, and lore, encoded in story and song. For too long, Western science dismissed such knowledge as unreliable myth, a bias that has blinded explorers and delayed countless discoveries. The stubborn search for El Dorado as a physical city, while ignoring the living ritual of the Gilded One, is a classic example of this failure to listen. Today, a profound shift is occurring. Modern archaeology increasingly recognizes that collaboration with local and indigenous peoples is not just ethical, it is essential. Their deep time knowledge acts as a compass, pointing scientific inquiry toward the right questions and the right places. This partnership, a fusion of cutting-edge technology with ancient, enduring wisdom, is perhaps the most powerful tool we have yet devised. It proves that to find a lost world, you must first honor the people who never forgot it. The thrill of discovery casts a long shadow. With the power to pull lost worlds from the earth comes a profound and often uncomfortable responsibility. Every time a trowel breaks the ground, it raises complex ethical questions that have no easy answers. Who truly owns the past? Is it the academic institution that funds the dig, the government of the country where the ruins lie, or the living descendants of the people who built them? This debate over cultural patrimony, the rightful inheritance of a people's heritage, is one of the most contentious in all of archaeology. The classic and still raging example is the case of the Elgin marbles. These exquisite sculptures were removed from the Parthenon in Athens in the early 19th century by a British nobleman and now reside in the British Museum, while Greece has demanded their return for decades. This single dispute encapsulates the entire conflict between global cultural display and national cultural identity, but the ethical challenges run even deeper. The very act of excavation can be destructive. Unsealing a tomb that has been stable for millennia can expose its fragile contents to air, light, and humidity, causing priceless artifacts to crumble to dust in a matter of years. The legendary tomb of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, remains largely unexcavated for this very reason. Scientists fear that opening the burial mound could irreparably damage the treasures within, a risk so great that the potential knowledge is not worth the loss. And for many indigenous communities, an archaeological site is not a relic, it is a sacred place, a direct link to their ancestors. To dig there is not a scientific endeavor, but a profound desecration. Should such places be left in peace, their secrets intact out of respect for living traditions, the future of the field hinges on this moral compass. It requires a fundamental shift from a model of extraction to one of collaboration, where local and descendant communities are not subjects of study, but essential partners from the very start of the process. True ethical archaeology is not just about what we can uncover, but about how we choose to listen, share, and preserve for generations yet to come. A new generation of researchers is now learning to read myth not as fiction, but as a cryptic archive. These ancient stories are being re-evaluated as complex documents, filled with valuable data waiting for the right key to unlock them. Take the long catalogue of ships in Homer's Iliad. For years, scholars viewed this section as a tedious list, a poetic invention to glorify the Greek forces. But what if it was something else entirely? When archaeologists began to map the cities and regions mentioned in that catalogue against the political landscape of the late Bronze Age, a startling pattern emerged. The geography was not random. It appeared to be a preserved memory, a ghostly outline of a real political and military coalition from a much earlier era. The epic was not a simple lie or a simple truth. It was a layered text, weaving a heroic narrative around a skeleton of genuine historical fact. This same principle applies to one of the world's oldest stories, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Within its verses lies a dramatic account of a great flood, a divine punishment that wiped out humanity. For a long time, this was seen as a standalone myth. Yet when compared to other ancient Near Eastern texts, like the biblical story of Noah, the parallels were too striking to ignore. They all shared a common core, a terrifying narrative of a world-destroying deluge. This repetition across different cultures suggested something profound. It pointed toward a collective, regional memory of a real, catastrophic event. Researchers then began to cross-reference these stories with geological and climatic data, searching for evidence of a massive, ancient inundation in the region. The goal is not to prove that a specific man built a specific boat, but to identify the historical trauma, the real-world disaster, that left such a deep scar on the human psyche that it was woven into the foundational stories of multiple civilizations. This approach fundamentally changes how we see these texts. A myth is not a false history. It is a different kind of history, one that encodes a society's deepest values, its most traumatic events, and the very structure of its power in a narrative form. The story of a flood is not just about water, it is about survival and divine justice. The tale of a golden city is not just about wealth, it is about political power and spiritual belief. Learning to decode this symbolic language is a skill as crucial as any trowel or satellite. This interpretive shift opens up entirely new avenues for investigation, suggesting that our oldest stories might be the very maps we need to find our way back to the truth. Every legend we uncover feels like a personal victory against time. This deep-seated urge to explore forgotten corners of the map is wired into our very being. We are not just seeking stones and artifacts. We are chasing the echo of adventure, the intoxicating thrill of stepping into the blank spaces on our collective mental atlas. In a world that often feels fully charted and explained, the possibility that a great mystery still lies hidden offers a powerful antidote to the mundane. The moment an archaeologist's trowel strikes the foundation of a city thought to be myth, it is more than a historical correction. It is a narrative of human triumph. It whispers a profound reassurance that perseverance and insatiable curiosity can, against all odds, rescue a memory from total oblivion. This is why the triumphs of figures like Heinrich Schliemann at Troy or Hiram Bingham at Machu Picchu did not just make academic headlines. They ignited the global imagination, turning these seekers into celebrities. Their stories resonated because they embodied a universal fantasy, the idea that a single determined individual could solve a puzzle that had baffled generations. The hunt, in the end, reveals as much about us as it does about the ruins we find. It answers a primal need to complete a story, to follow a thread from a campfire tale all the way to its source in the earth. This psychological drive is the silent engine of archaeology. the intangible force that turns a scientific discipline into the greatest treasure hunt in human history. No single legend has fueled more searches than the lost continent of Atlantis. For over 2,000 years, this story of a sophisticated island nation punished by the gods and swallowed by the sea has been the ultimate prize for dreamers and explorers. The philosopher Plato provided our only ancient source, describing a powerful empire that existed 9,000 years before his own time, a land of concentric rings and advanced technology that vanished in a single cataclysmic day and night. The sheer scope of the tale, set in such a deep and unreachable past, makes its verification nearly impossible, yet the hunt has never ceased. Proposals for its location span the entire globe, from the sunken mudflats of the Bahamas to the frigid waters of the North Sea. The most scientifically compelling theory points to a real-world disaster of staggering proportions, the volcanic eruption of Thera, the modern island of Santorini. Around the year 1600 BC, this volcano exploded with a force estimated to be 4 times that of the Krakatoa eruption, sending tsunamis racing across the Mediterranean that would have devastated the coastal settlements of the Minoan civilization on Crete. The Minoans were a seafaring, advanced culture, a plausible match for Plato's description of a maritime power. Their sudden and dramatic decline aligns hauntingly well with the legend of a civilization erased by the sea. Yet, even if Thera inspired the story, was it the literal Atlantis? The dates and geography do not match Plato's account perfectly, leaving room for endless debate. This is the central puzzle of Atlantis. It exists in a space between allegory and history. Plato himself used the story as a moral fable, a warning about the hubris of nations that believed themselves invincible. The destruction of Atlantis was a lesson in divine punishment for a society that had lost its way. So why does the search persist with such fervor? Because Atlantis represents the ultimate mystery, a blank canvas onto which we project our deepest fascinations with a golden age, a catastrophic end, and the possibility that an entire chapter of the human story is still missing. The quest for this one lost continent, whether it ever existed or not, is a perfect metaphor for the entire field of archaeology. It is the driving force that pushes us to look deeper, to question established history, and to wonder what other magnificent truths are still hidden, waiting for their story to be recovered from the depths. Ironically, the warming that threatens our world is now thawing out its oldest stories. Climate change has become an unlikely and urgent partner in archaeology. As glaciers retreat and shorelines erode, they are surrendering secrets locked away for thousands of years. High in the Alps, the steady melt of ancient ice is revealing a treasure trove of organic history. Neolithic hunters are emerging from the frost, their leather quivers, wooden arrows, and even the clothes on their backs preserved in stunning detail. The most famous of these frozen travelers is Ötzi the Iceman, a man from over 5,000 years ago who was revealed by a melting glacier in 1991. His body, his tools, and his last meal provided an unprecedented snapshot of Copper Age life. Meanwhile, along the coastlines of the British Isles, increasingly severe storms are clawing away at cliffs and beaches. These violent weather events are stripping back the modern world to expose much older landscapes beneath. The stumps of ancient, submerged forests are appearing, along with the remains of prehistoric hunting sites and even early medieval settlements that had been lost to the sea for centuries. Each find is a miracle of preservation, but that miracle is tragically short-lived. Once these organic materials are exposed to the air, sunlight, and modern bacteria, they begin to decay at an alarming rate. A wooden spear shaft that survived for 5 millennia can rot away in a single decade. A leather boot, frozen solid for ages, can turn to dust in a few short years if left unprotected. This creates a desperate race against time for archaeologists, who must scramble to these newly revealed sites, often in remote and dangerous locations, to document, recover, and immediately stabilize these fragile artifacts. The very force that is gifting us these windows into the past is also ensuring they will slam shut forever if we do not act quickly. This is the double-edged sword of modern discovery, where every revelation is also a countdown. The thrill of discovery carries a powerful temptation, a longing for the find that will rewrite history. Yet this same desire can be exploited, creating some of archaeology's most enduring and embarrassing deceptions. For every Troy pulled from the earth, there is a forgery waiting in the shadows, a story crafted not by time but by cunning. The most infamous of these is the case of the Piltdown Man. In the early 20th century, this collection of bone fragments was presented to the world as the ultimate missing link, a human ancestor with an ape-like jaw and a modern brain case. It was exactly what many in the scientific establishment wanted to find, a fossil that perfectly supported their theories of human evolution. For decades, Piltdown Man held a place in textbooks, its authenticity unquestioned by those who were so eager to believe. It was only in the 1950s that new, more rigorous testing exposed the truth. The bones were a deliberate fraud, a human skull artificially aged and paired with the jaw of an orangutan, with the teeth carefully filed down to mimic human wear. The desire for a British origin of humanity had blinded experts to the evidence right in front of them. A similar public frenzy gripped 19th-century America with the Cardiff giant. This 10-foot-tall figure, supposedly a petrified man discovered on a farm in New York, was in reality a massive block of gypsum, secretly carved and treated with acid to look ancient. Its creators played perfectly on the religious and scientific debates of the era, and thousands paid to see the biblical giant, even after newspapers exposed the hoax. People wanted to believe in the spectacle. In a more recent and systematic deception, a Japanese amateur archaeologist named Shinichi Fujimura was celebrated for his incredible knack for finding stone tools from the early Paleolithic period. He was nicknamed God's Hands for his seemingly miraculous discoveries, which appeared to push human habitation in Japan back hundreds of thousands of years. The truth was far simpler. He had been planting the tools himself, burying them the night before a dig. When a newspaper published covert photos of him digging holes and depositing the artifacts, the entire edifice of the Japanese Paleolithic, built largely on his finds, came crashing down. These stories are more than just historical footnotes. They serve as permanent warnings. They teach us that the scientific process is not just about finding evidence, but about relentlessly questioning it. Peer review, chemical analysis, and a healthy dose of skepticism are the essential tools that protect the truth from our own overwhelming desire for it. Every hoax that is uncovered, no matter how embarrassing, ultimately strengthens the discipline, forcing it to develop better methods and maintain higher standards. The search for lost worlds demands not only passion, but also an unwavering commitment to proof. The hunt for lost worlds is entering its smartest era yet, powered by artificial intelligence. These systems can digest staggering amounts of information, from satellite photos and geological surveys to centuries of historical records and excavation reports. An AI does not get tired or biased. It scans all this data at once, searching for subtle patterns and correlations that a single researcher might overlook across a lifetime of study. This is not about replacing the archaeologist's intuition, but supercharging it. Imagine an algorithm cross-referencing ancient trade route maps with soil composition data and seasonal rainfall patterns. It could then generate a heat map, highlighting a handful of square miles in a vast desert as the most statistically probable location for a forgotten caravan city. This predictive modeling takes the guesswork out of the initial search, turning a needle in a haystack into a targeted, evidence-based investigation. The same technology is breathing life into damaged primary sources. Advanced AI is now being trained to read ancient texts that were once considered lost causes, charred scrolls from Pompeii or fragmented clay tablets where the writing has faded. By analyzing the ghost of a stroke or the angle of a crack, these systems can suggest probable letters and words, effectively deciphering messages that have been silent for millennia. This could unlock a forgotten king's diary or a merchant's logbook, providing the very clue that cracks a legendary case wide open. Beyond texts, these models can simulate entire ancient landscapes. They can digitally recreate how a coastline looked 5,000 years ago, showing how a prosperous port city might now lie miles inland, buried under silt deposited by a shifting river delta. This data-driven approach ensures that every excavation is more than a hopeful dig. It is a precise test of a powerful hypothesis. The future of discovery is a partnership where human curiosity is guided by the tireless, pattern-finding power of intelligent machines. The search for lost worlds has finally broken free from the academic journal. Today, the quest to uncover legendary places belongs to everyone, a global effort powered by the curiosity of ordinary people. Public archaeology and citizen science projects have flung open the doors of discovery, inviting anyone with a smartphone or a computer to join the hunt. Platforms like Global Explorer provide volunteers with satellite images, training them to scan the Earth's surface for the subtle signs of looting pits or the faint geometric outlines of a buried structure. Every click from a volunteer represents another pair of eyes on a landscape, processing a volume of visual data that would be impossible for any single research team to manage. This collective gaze has proven remarkably effective, identifying potential sites from Peru to Egypt that might have otherwise remained hidden for decades. Alongside this analysis, crowdsourced funding has emerged as a vital new resource, with thousands of small donations from around the world pooling together to finance major excavations that traditional grants might overlook. The benefits of this open-handed approach are profound. It directly connects people to their heritage, transforming them from passive observers into active participants in the recovery of their own history. This hands-on involvement fosters a powerful personal stake in preservation, spreading awareness about the fragile nature of these sites and the constant threat of looting. When a community helps find a lost city, they become its guardians. The story of that discovery is no longer locked away in a specialist's report, but becomes a chapter in our shared human story, told and retold by those who helped write it. This collective endeavor ensures that the grand project of bringing myths into reality is not a solitary pursuit, but a truly human one undertaken by us all. A lost city found is a sleeping giant awoken. The moment a legendary site is confirmed, its impact ripples far beyond the archaeologist's trench, transforming local economies and rekindling cultural flames. The rediscovery of Petra and Machu Picchu did not just solve historical puzzles, they created vibrant new industries. Villages that once relied on subsistence farming found themselves at the center of a global pilgrimage, with new hotels, restaurants, and guide services sprouting to welcome visitors from every corner of the earth. This influx of tourism dollars can fund infrastructure, schools, and hospitals, lifting entire regions out of poverty, but the value is not measured in currency alone. For descendant communities, these places are a profound source of identity. The discovery of the Moch Lord of Supon tomb in Peru was a seismic event. Unearthing the intact burial of a warrior priest surrounded by exquisite gold and silver artifacts was like meeting an ancestor face to face. He was not a myth, he was a real leader from their own soil, and his story became a powerful national symbol of a sophisticated pre-Columbian past. This cultural revitalization is often cemented by international recognition. Designation as a UNESCO World Heritage Site places these locations on a global pedestal, ensuring they receive protection and conservation funding while acknowledging their value to all humanity. Yet this very success breeds its own set of modern challenges. The footsteps of millions of tourists, while economically vital, can slowly erode ancient stone pathways. The humidity from breath can damage fragile murals in sealed tombs. The quest for the perfect photograph can lead to trespassing beyond protective barriers. This is the delicate balancing act of preservation versus access. How do you share a wonder with the world without loving it to death? A rediscovered city is never simply a relic of the past. It is a new and living entity, forced to navigate the pressures and promises of the present. Its story continues to be written not only in stone, but in the careful decisions we make to protect it for the future. A single broken pot tells many stories, but only if you know how to listen. Today's archaeologist rarely works alone, instead leading a chorus of specialists where each voice adds a unique verse to an ancient song. The true power of modern discovery lies in this fusion of disciplines, a collaboration that builds a complete world from scattered fragments. A geologist examining a site does not just see soil, they read a timeline written in volcanic ash layers, precisely dating a city's destruction to a specific eruption. They can trace the origins of a temple's marble across hundreds of miles, revealing forgotten trade routes. Meanwhile, a geneticist in a clean lab extracts ancient DNA from a skeleton's tooth. This is not about identifying individuals, but about mapping the grand saga of human movement. By analyzing the genetic code of a city's inhabitants, they can reveal where their ancestors journeyed from, who they traded with, and even what diseases they carried. These biological clues can confirm or rewrite the histories told on clay tablets. At the same time, a botanist sifts through soil samples, recovering tiny, fossilized grains of pollen and ancient seeds. These minute-time capsules reveal what crops people farmed, what forests surrounded their city, and how their environment changed over centuries, perhaps even revealing the agricultural missteps that led to their decline. This hard data provides the skeleton of the past, the undeniable facts of dates, diets, and migrations. But to put flesh on those bones, we need the historians who can interpret a king's decree, and the storytellers who understand why a myth of a flood persists across generations. The scientific evidence tells us what happened, but the stories help us understand how it felt. When a volcanic ash layer from geology matches the date of a city's fall from archaeology, which in turn echoes a legend of a mountain's fury from local oral tradition, you have something far more powerful than any single fact. You have a convergence of truth. This interdisciplinary model transforms a collection of data points into a vivid, breathing portrait of a lost world, proving that the most complete picture of the past is always a mosaic, pieced together by many different hands. Even with all our tools and triumphs, some legends refuse to be pinned to a map. The past guards its secrets jealously, and a handful of its most famous locations continue to vanish just as we think we have them in our grasp. Consider the final resting place of Alexander the Great. This was not just any tomb, but a magnificent shrine for a man who conquered the known world. Historical accounts describe his golden casket being visited by Roman emperors like Augustus, who who reportedly placed a golden diadem upon his head. Yet, despite centuries of searching and numerous bold claims, its location remains one of history's most profound and tantalizing mysteries. Was it in Alexandria, the city he founded, or somewhere else entirely? The Earth has yet to give up its answer. Similarly, the land of Punt was a place of legend to the ancient Egyptians themselves. Their temple reliefs depict fantastic trading expeditions returning with heaps of ivory, live baboons, fragrant incense trees, and gold. Punt was their essential partner, a source of unimaginable wealth and exotic goods. Yet, for all the detailed records of what came from Punt, the Egyptians never clearly recorded where it was. Was it in the Horn of Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, or further south? We trade with its memory, but the land itself has disappeared from our modern geography. Then there are the legends that science itself has laid to rest. The mythical continent of Lemuria was born not from ancient poetry, but from a 19th-century scientific puzzle. To explain why lemur fossils were found in India and Madagascar, but not in between, theorists proposed a vast sunken land bridge in the Indian Ocean. It was a compelling story that filled a gap in our knowledge, a lost world that explained the distribution of life, but the theory of plate tectonics provided the true and far more spectacular answer. The continents themselves were once joined and slowly drifted apart, carrying the lemurs with them. There was no need for a sunken continent, and Lemuria faded from scientific reality back into the realm of pure myth. These enduring mysteries are not failures. They are the lifeblood of discovery. They humbly remind us that our knowledge is always incomplete and that not every ancient story will yield a tidy conclusion. It is this shimmering possibility, this promise that the next great find is still out there, that ensures the map of the past will always have a few blank spaces left to fill. From the stone walls of Troy to the sunken statues of Thonis-Heracleion, the journey from myth to reality is one of our greatest intellectual adventures. These discoveries are far more than academic checkmarks. They are powerful reunions, reconnecting us with the lives and dreams of our shared human family. Each time a legendary city is confirmed, we are not just proving a story true. We are validating the imagination of every generation that kept that story alive, passing it down around campfires and in sacred texts long after the original builders had turned to dust. These finds teach us a profound humility, revealing how even the grandest empires can be utterly erased from memory, their triumphs and tragedies silenced for centuries. Yet they also teach us the power of perseverance, demonstrating that with patient science and an insatiable curiosity, we can answer echoes that have traveled across millennia. As our tools grow sharper, from artificial intelligence scanning satellite images to robotics plumbing the deep ocean, the map of the past is being redrawn before our eyes. Who knows what other legendary places are waiting just beyond our sight? The fabled halls of Avalon, the lost libraries of the Silk Road, or a kingdom we have not even dreamed of yet could be the next to step from the shadows into the clear light of history. The search is far from over. The next great discovery, the one that rewrites every textbook, might be waiting beneath the next shovel turn of Earth. If these journeys into the forgotten corners of our world have captured your imagination, subscribe for more explorations into the mysteries of our past. And we would love to hear from you. What vanished civilization or legendary place do you hope was real all along? Share your own favorite historical mystery in the comments below. You do not need a doctorate to pull history from the earth. The adventure of uncovering our past is now a public endeavor, open to anyone with a passion for discovery. Many university-led excavations around the world welcome volunteers, often for a fee that covers your training and board. This is your chance to feel the cool grit of soil in your hands, to learn the careful sweep of a trowel, and to experience the heart-pounding moment when a piece of pottery, untouched for centuries, is freed from the ground. It is physical, demanding, and utterly transformative work. If you cannot travel to a dig site, you can still contribute from your living room. Online platforms like Zooniverse host incredible citizen science projects. With just a computer, you can help professional archaeologists by sorting through thousands of satellite images to spot potential ruins, or by transcribing faded texts from ancient ledgers. Every click is a direct contribution to a real research project, a digital form of volunteerism that is reshaping our understanding of the ancient world. Your support can also be financial. Organizations like the Archaeological Institute of America use donations to fund groundbreaking digs, publish vital research, and fight against the looting that destroys archaeological sites forever. Even your choice to be a thoughtful tourist makes a difference. When you visit a place like Petra or Machu Picchu, staying on marked paths and resisting the urge to touch fragile murals is a powerful act of preservation. It ensures that these wonders will survive for the next generation of explorers. By engaging with the past in any of these ways, you cease to be just a spectator. You become an active participant in the greatest story ever told, the story of us. Your own curiosity, that simple desire to know what came before, is the most vital tool in the entire archaeological